Sometimes music is able to transport you to another place and change your life for the better. Ben Schneider's indie folk rock band Lord Huron is able to do just that. Their hit song, The Night We Met, resonated with over 100 million listeners, capturing a feeling of lost love that so many of us have experienced.
Taking me back to the night we met.
It would be a shame, however, to only know Lord Huron for this song, as their 2021 album, Long Lost, captures a musical narrative many fans have cited as life-changing. The unusual writing method Ben Schneider used for the album played a big part in its transformative power. Topics dealing with heartbreak and existential dread are written through the lens of fictional musicians. These characters were born while spending time in their mysterious studio, Whispering Pines. The LA-based studio was abandoned for years before Ben Schneider and his band members moved in.
We tried to figure out the history of this place without too much luck, so we just sort of started inventing characters, people who we kind of imagine had gone through there and worked there. And I always, like to try to write through a character's perspective, just to get away from my own experience and try to broaden the scope of our songs.
Outside of the songs, we know little about the characters Ben is referring to. This is because Ben envisioned the characters to be forgotten by the world, and the only reason we're still talking about them is because the Long Lost album was found under a pile of dust in the mysterious Whispering Pines studio. Or at least, this is the myth. Being a painter from a young age, Ben was able to make this myth even more credible by painting the album's artwork himself. On the album's artwork, we can see the musicians displayed with blurred-out faces. These blurred faces symbolize the world's faded memory of the characters. On the back of the album, we see the recommendation to listen to the album in sequence to get fully immersed in the stories. The opening track of the album immediately throws us into the world of characters tormented by lovesickness and existential questioning.
Sky doesn't care what my poor heart wants.
This opening track has the narrator sing about his struggle with the universe not caring about his desires. This is a theme commonly explored by existentialist philosophers. Existentialists argue that the universe does not provide any answers or meaning, leaving individuals to confront the absurdity of existence themselves. So, with this song, the theme for the album is set. How do we live in a world without meaning? The album begins to answer this question as the title track, Long Lost, is reached. Despite being lost in the world, the narrator feels a deep sense of connection to the universe. The song is an encouragement to explore the world in order to feel connected to it again. And even when we end up all alone in that journey, it doesn't mean we have to feel alone. In fact, being comfortable with ourselves first is perhaps one of the most important steps to living a life worth living. Or, as mentioned multiple times throughout the album,
Until you die.
Puisses-tu vivre jusqu'à ta mort.
Placed carefully throughout the album, we are presented with this idea worth thinking about. Because what does it mean to actually live instead of just being alive? How often do we regret actions not taken? How often do we worry about future life events only to find out that they were never worth worrying about? Perhaps this is why the statement is repeated throughout the album, as a reminder that life is here to be lived and not to be taken all too seriously, simply because in the blink of an eye it can all come to an end. This idea is further emphasized in the song, Where Did the Time Go? We can look back at important life events and be amazed by how long ago it was already. While we were too caught up in life, days turned into weeks and months turned into years without us paying all that much attention to it. This sense of nostalgia is a recurring theme throughout the album and makes listeners reflect on the passing of time in their own life. But finally, as the end of the album is reached, we reapproach the core question the beginning of the album posed once more. How do we live in a world without meaning? Or, as the second to last song is called, what do it mean?
Much to say,
The narrator, now in a state of disillusionment, has become acutely aware that all his life's efforts will eventually be reduced to an epitaph on a gravestone. He questions the meaning of it all, the significance of his words, efforts, experiences, wondering if everything, ultimately, amounts to nothing. And this leads the narrator to ponder the final question the album leaves us with.
What does it mean if it all means nothing?
As depressing as this final line of the album might seem, it is not at all intended to be. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, that does encapsulate that philosophy I was talking about before, where it's not about answering. I mean, the title of the song is literally a question, because it's not about getting to the bottom of that mystery. It's just about kind of accepting and floating in it, which has been something I've been grappling with for a long time.
In an interview with Atwood magazine, Ben delves deeper into the meaning of the song. It's just kind of my philosophy in general, is that there's no closure. You're never going to know everything. You just kind of have to take it as it is. The philosophy I've been interested in, and even just science, is leading me to think there's really no foreordained purpose to anything that's happening. And therefore, how do you find meaning in life in what you're doing? And I do think it's there to be found. I just think people can't be afraid to ask that question, because it's going to naturally come up when you accept the realities of the universe and the way things are structured. And there's no intrinsic meaning, I don't think, but you have to kind of create it and find it. And that's what this song is about. I think in the long term, we'll all be much more healthy and happy if we can face those big, dark truths. So it seems like this is what Ben Schneider is trying to leave us with. Long Lost being an ode to facing heartbreak, life and death, because this is what we all have to deal with at some point in our life. The concept of death in particular is often ignored, but can be an incredible teacher for letting go of the insignificant and focusing on what truly matters. May you live until you die.